Welcome back. We are going to discuss on democracy, the problem of democracy. We are going to discuss on the problem of democracy. This is African philosophy. This topic, the problem of democracy in Africa, is an African philosophy topic under developmental issues. The problem of democracy in Africa has posed a problem or a debate among philosophers and non-philosophers. Democracy can be defined as a form of government ruled by the people directly or through elections. Um, the debate is, do Africans practice democracy or Africans do not practice democracy? So, on one hand, Africans practice democracy, that democracy is in Africa, while on the other hand, there is no democracy in Africa. Let us begin with the positive side. Democracy is found in Africa. One of the strongest arguments in support of the fact that democracy is found in Africa is that in Africa there is elections. In Africa there are elections. So many elections are carried out in Africa in order to determine who rules. In most African states, including Cameroon, we have times for election before a leader is chosen. An election being one of the principal characteristics of democracy. And if elections are being carried out in Africa to determine rulers, it means that there is democracy in Africa. Number two, there is freedom. There is freedom. There is respect of human rights. Democracy cannot operate without freedom. And in Africa, we realize that there is freedom in Africa. There is freedom of speech, freedom of press, there is freedom of worship in so many states in Africa. So it automatically means there is democracy in Africa. There's also the respect of human rights in so many areas of Africa. These are principles of democracy, and if they are found in Africa, it means there is democracy in Africa. On the other hand, democracy cannot be found in Africa. Democracy cannot be practiced in Africa, and this has to do with the problems of democracy in Africa. Number one of these problems, which makes democracy unattainable in Africa, is the presence of bad government. Most African rulers are bad government, or most African states are ruled by bad government. And these rulers or these head of states, they carefully twist or manipulate the constitution of their respective states in order to stay long in power. And by doing so, they dictate the way the political framework or the political activities is going to run based on their personal interest. And because and as a result, the rightful application of democratic principles are not being experienced in Africa because of self-interest for those who are actually in offices. So, because of this, it makes democracy difficult to be implemented in Africa. Another reason why democracy cannot be practiced in Africa is as a result of certain plight in Africa. By plight, I mean problems such as what? Poverty, illiteracy in Africa. Poverty and illiteracy have been a serious problem as far as democracy is concerned. Poverty makes Africans to be so busy trying to see what they can eat, hustling from one end to the other, and as such, they are left with little time to be engaged in political or democratic activities. Illiteracy also makes many Africans to shrink themselves from democracy, as well as making them to lose interest in democracy, since as democracy requires you to have a certain understanding of politics. So these are problems which are actually encountering democracy in Africa. But at the end of the day, we must conclude by saying that there is democracy in Africa. We cannot deny the fact that democracy in Africa, even though it still needs more time in order to be adjusted to suit the Western style. So I believe that if more time is given to democracy in Africa, it will gain more ground, and it will be just the way the Western democracy is. Thank you very much.